that when you're taking that dollar from that business owner, or you're taking that dollar from that homeowner, or you're taking that dollar from that property owner that then in turn rents it to someone who's working a shift at the the local beer joint, or who knows what. That's all money that those people can't go out and make decisions with on their own. And I feel the American way is for people to have what they make in their pocket to do with as they please. Don't tell them, hey, we're going to tax you more because we need this gargantuan project out here, and boy, we're really helping you with this. You ought to thank me. If it's that great, then people would be up there writing checks above and beyond what their taxes are. I don't think anybody's doing that.
What do you feel the judges, county judge, in particular county judge, role is in defending state sovereignty against federal entities?
Well, I think that number one, if you have a clear understanding of the Constitution, there is no way that you can look at the majority of what the federal government does now and even call it legal, and with that, call it legitimate. Once again, this is an area where, maybe it's not you per se. Maybe it's not you, the county judge. Maybe you work in cooperation, in conjunction with your district attorney, with your sheriff's office. You start pushing back against some of this legislation that's coming down. I'll give you a good example. The Trans-Texas Corridor. Should have never happened. When I decided to start looking into researching things to run for this office, what I found was, and I can't put this on my opponent because he took office in 2003, January 2003, but he was the handpicked predecessor. I mean, he was the handpicked successor to the predecessor, if that makes sense. But anyway, the 2003 Victoria County budget said that they needed the I-69 corridor designation, and they were going to seek funding through this legislation, that legislation at the very end, and the Trans-Texas Corridor program. And my whole thing is, we had, I think in 2008, or might have been late 07, I don't remember, our county judge was completely silent on this. He never wrote a guest column about it, he never talked about it, he was completely silent on it. Well, then whenever it was it was on the verge of happening, and that's whenever turf got involved, and I'm sure y'all remember all the town hall meetings that were had around the state. They had one at the community center, and I don't know how many people went. I estimated like 1,500. I mean, the place was packed. The line was way out the parking lot. And what I tell people is, we should have never had to do that. My county judge, he can't tell me that he didn't know. I'm sorry, I was born in the dark, but it wasn't last night. Don't tell me you didn't know. I mean, all this stuff was conceived in 1991 under George H.W. Bush. This is not new stuff. People don't come up with plans that cost trillions of dollars overnight. It doesn't happen. It's not a 6-month deal. But they not only did they not stop it, they were actually implicit in it. And that means one of two things. That either means they didn't know about it, which if you're ignorant, get the hell out of office. Okay? Resign your position. Or two, they were in on it. And if you're in on it, there are probably things I'd say about you that I wouldn't want recorded. So, but yeah, that's just a good example of how I believe our county judges let us down. And it was weird. What happened was, and this is where I get into, let's tell the whole story. Okay? One of the things I completely hate about politicians is they'll take one little part of the story and they'll focus on that. And maybe they're on the right side of that one little facet. But in the whole grand scheme of things, that's minutia. It doesn't mean anything. When they had us over there at the community center, there was this huge argument about whether the path should go around the north side of the county or the south side of the county. And I'm standing out in the parking lot, and I'm listening to everybody, and I'm thinking, oh my God. And I'm watching this unfold, and it's almost surreal to me because, I've seen some propaganda films, and I've read some propaganda pieces, and I know how they manipulate. I'm thinking, we're going to all get in here, and we're going to determine, first of all, it's divide and conquer. They're going to split us up into two factions, and then whoever can make the most passionate argument and get the most followers on their side, then it's going to go the route they wanted. We should have never had that argument. We should have had solidarity and said, no how, no way, no sir, not here. But in the absence of leadership, people don't know which way to go. And my whole thing is, if you're not going to lead, but you're in a leadership position, then you're leading us to destruction. by the absence of your leadership. That's been one of my, that's one of the things that I see lacking here. That's one of the reasons I decided to jump in. I believe in true leadership. I believe in telling the whole story. One of the things I've said over and over is, government deserves no apologies. I don't need to hide anything. Okay? If there's something that absolutely has to be done, and I'm not smart enough to articulate that position, and I'm not crafty enough to learn how to get people behind it, then I'm in over my head. Because I feel like good ideas sell themselves. Sometimes they need a message behind them. But if you can't go in there and articulate something, then it's probably a pretty bad idea.
If you had to pick one thing, what do you think is the biggest impact you could have on the county of Victoria as a county judge?
If I were elected, I think the biggest impact I could have would probably not be, it would probably not be anything I could do directly, okay? And what I mean by that is, if I were to help lower the tax rate a significant percentage, that would be a big deal. But I think where I could stand to make the most ground here in Victoria, because we're different than everywhere else, is start giving people a different perspective. Because I think that if you change minds, you change the paradigm. I think that once you start to do that, you don't have to go into a 4-hour discussion on why something's bad and have a history lesson on why we shouldn't do this or do that. If you start getting people headed down the right path of thought, then sooner or later they get that snap. Right now, though, we have no alternative message. It's nothing but cohesion. From our school board to our local college, from our city, from our inside our schools. I mean, it's everybody pushing the same agenda. And not that I want to be a naysayer per se. There are good programs out there to get behind. There are good things to do in the community. But you have to sit back and think. And you have to be willing to ask the tough questions. And I think that's what I could bring to the table. I think that right now we have a lot of people that are unwilling or untrained in the manner of questioning. I think, a couple of big names get behind something and everybody just goes, yeah, hell, sounds like a good deal to me. And I think if they saw someone in a leadership position, let's face it, the county judges, it carries a lot of weight. I think if they had a county judge that when the newspaper guy went over there to him and said, hey, what do you think about this bond deal? And the county judge said, I think it's the stupidest thing coming down the pike in 20 years. I think people probably go, oh, well, maybe we ought to rethink this deal instead of let's all shuffle down there and vote yes, So I think that's probably the biggest thing I can do. Now, as far as what I want to do, I focus on the tax rate. I focus on, the largesse that we have. I focus on every time there's a state or federal grant out there to be had, we seem to chase it. Everybody knows that no money comes without strings. There's not a single dollar out there that doesn't hold in it where the string is attached. And then all these things leave residual costs. Most of the time you're obligating your county or your city or your school or whatever to continuing a program even after the funding runs out. That's something I want to discontinue the practice of. I think a good significant portion of our budget is ballooned because of that. So that